I was first introduced to Kingdom Hearts by my brother, who had described it as a Disney game with Final Fantasy characters, which is an accurate description, although it is very simple and missing the complexity that the series would later be known for. At the time, I was a child who had seen many of the Disney movies featured in the game, as well as played, to some extent, the Final Fantasy games featured in the original Kingdom Hearts, and would later be happy to see more characters appear in the sequel. However, since Kingdom Hearts 2, there has only been one new Final Fantasy character added to the Kingdom Hearts saga, and while I do think it was a clever idea to use Zack Fair in Birth by Sleep, as it served as a prequel to the rest of the series, and also implies that Zack would later share the same fate he has in Final Fantasy VII, it is a bit disappointing to only have the one character appearance. I'm leaving Dream Drop Distance out of this discussion, as I do think that having a dream world where a different Square Enix IP exists in the place of Final Fantasy is a cool idea, but I don't want to see this trend continue, as there is still a plethora of things that can be taken from Final Fantasy and used in the Kingdom Hearts. Right out the gate, I want to discuss the impossibility of a world based off of a single Final Fantasy game. Not an all-encompassing world, incorporating many Final Fantasy elements, locations, and enemies, as that would be very possible. However, those traits just as easily, if not easier, can be attached to a Disney world instead of having to create a whole new world with a new story, and possibly even original characters. A single Final Fantasy game can take just as long, or even more time, to beat than a Kingdom Hearts game, as opposed to a Disney movie, which usually has the runtime closer to 2 hours. Condensing a single Final Fantasy game into the size of one Kingdom Hearts world would be equivalent to writing a book report on The Hobbit, but solely using the back cover for your information. That's not an assignment that's going to pass. One way that I think could resolve this issue is, instead of a full-fledged world, a single Final Fantasy game could be utilized as a book, similar to the 100 Acre Wood in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. You would have different pages detailing different events of the game, but there are things you could easily leave out. This also goes around having to build one world that transitions from one area to the other by having separated areas detailing one event that happened in the game. With this formula, it would then come down to choosing a single Final Fantasy game that could fit this. Personally, I feel Final Fantasy IX would work the best here, as it is a very cartoony looking game which works well with the Disney aesthetic already seen in Kingdom Hearts. 9 also serves as a love letter to the previous Final Fantasy games, and is full of references to the previous entries in the franchise. There's also a heavy theme of friendship, which is unarguably one of the most important themes in the Kingdom Hearts franchise. In addition, the backgrounds in Final Fantasy IX are absolutely stunning, and would work well as pages in a book. The biggest drawback to the idea of using Final Fantasy IX is the fact that Vivi already exists in the Kingdom Hearts universe. This doesn't completely derail a Final Fantasy IX book, as there are many great characters to work with, but for a lot of people, it's not Final Fantasy IX without Vivi. This is the main problem with adapting many of the popular Final Fantasy games into a proper world. Their characters exist elsewhere in the Kingdom Hearts universe. Ultimately, I'd like to be proven wrong and have a Final Fantasy world in future installments of Kingdom Hearts, but I don't really see it happening. Next, I want to discuss the nativity of the Final Fantasy characters who appear in Kingdom Hearts. For the most part, we see Final Fantasy characters appear in the original worlds and not in the Disney worlds, with the exception of Cloud, Sephiroth, Zack, and Auron, who are all seen in Olympus Coliseum. Cloud and Sephiroth are both later moved to Radiant Garden in Kingdom Hearts 2, suggesting that Radiant Garden is their world of origin. Zack and Auron are a bit more complicated to figure out. Auron is a dead warrior summoned by Hades, so it is unclear as to Auron's world of origin, as it depends on Hades' power and what the underworld is in the Kingdom Hearts universe. If the underworld is limited to Olympus, then one would assume that Auron existed at one point at Olympus. If the underworld is not limited to Olympus, well then Hades has some scary potential.
The great god of the underworld is afraid of a kid?
Zack, on the other hand, is not only seen in Olympus, he seems to be designed to fit the aesthetic of the movie Hercules, which is awesome, and I would love to see more Final Fantasy characters appear in the Disney art style. Zack seems to originate from the Olympus Coliseum in the Kingdom Hearts universe, as he is there at the same time that one would assume the rest of the Final Fantasy cast would be at Radiant Garden in Birth by Sleep. While Zack is the only new Final Fantasy character in Birth by Sleep, he was not the only one planned. Originally, Laguna Lior from Final Fantasy VIII was supposed to be present at the Mirage Arena. It is uncertain what Laguna's role would have been at the arena, but it has been speculated that he would be the one in charge of the arena. Laguna and Zack's presence in Birth by Sleep serve as a mirrored version of the respected Final Fantasy timelines, instead being portrayed in the Kingdom Hearts universe, with Zack later joining with Cloud and Laguna being the protagonist in the flashback sections of Final Fantasy VIII. We see the parallel best during the credits of Birth by Sleep, where we see a black feather slowly fall down at the doors of the Coliseum, and we see Zack disappear, implying Sephiroth's presence. With Zack, we see it may be possible to have Final Fantasy characters inhabit the Disney worlds and look like they belong to that world, which is something I'd love to see more of. For example, having Red 13 appear in the Pride Lands should they ever return there, or Freya in a Robin Hood world, or even Lightning in Treasure Planet. Since I am on the topic of characters, there is a scene in the credits to Kingdom Hearts 2 I want to take a look at. In this scene we see Leon, who was Squall from Final Fantasy VIII, but renamed after failing to stop the darkness from taking over Radiant Garden. From this letter emerges a pair of wings that match those seen on the back of his jacket. These wings can also be seen on the back of Renoa's outfit. Renoa Hartley is Squall's love interest from Final Fantasy VIII, and this scene here seems to hint that Renoa exists in the Kingdom Hearts universe. Whether this will turn into anything in the future has yet to be seen, but it is a nice nod for fans of Final Fantasy VIII. Another nod to Final Fantasy VIII is seen in one of Sora's victory animations in Olympus Coliseum, where he mimics Squall's victory animation in the Final Fantasy game. I'd also love to see Final Fantasy enemies appear in future Kingdom Hearts installments. The most obvious choice is having villains appear as post-game bosses, similar to Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, but hopefully a different villain, as Sephiroth has yet to acknowledge my previous two victories against him. A great optional Final Fantasy boss would be Gilgamesh, the dimensional traveler always looking for a new sword to add to his collection. It makes so much sense for Gilgamesh to challenge Sora for the Keyblade, and I'm surprised it hasn't been done yet. Other bosses that could appear could be reoccurring enemies throughout the series, such as the Behemoth or the Iron Giant. Summons could also appear as optional bosses, or even as summons themselves. Proof has been found that Bahamut was originally going to be a summon in the first Kingdom Hearts game, however it did not make it into the final product, and honestly, I'd rather just have Disney summons and be able to fight the Final Fantasy summons, similar to the summons appearing as bosses in Final Fantasy XIV A Realm Reborn. Hey, you made it to the end of my very bad first video. I want to do a lot of videos on Kingdom Hearts. It is a series that I really like. I also really like Final Fantasy. So, to me this seemed like a no-brainer, and I know I'm missing stuff, and I might actually revisit this topic another day. But for right now, I feel like I've said some things that I just wanted out there, and we'll keep the rest for another time. But thank you for sticking through this video. I hope to improve myself in later videos so it's a lot easier of a watch. Thank you. Also, a few more things before the video ends. I want to ask for any criticisms anybody has on this so I can improve myself. I'd also like to hear any other instances of Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts that you guys have found, because I actually want to encourage discussion with these videos. Oh, and the very last thing before I leave. There's an interesting picture comparing Cypher from Final Fantasy VIII to his Kingdom Hearts 2 design to Snow's design for Final Fantasy XIII. It's kinda cool, right?